My husband abandoned me in an Italian town after a heated argument, assuming I'd crawl back to him. I didn't. Now he's the one scrambling to find me. Let's see how she manages, James quips, slamming the car door in the cool evening air. The taillights of our rental car faded as they rounded a narrow Italian street, leaving only dust and the laughter of my husband's friends. I stood frozen, mouth open mid-sentence. Our dispute outside the quaint cafe was rendered insignificant by his unthinkable act. He's coming back, I muttered, drawing curious glances from diners at sidewalk tables. This is just to scare me. But the knot in my stomach tightened as minutes stretched into hours. Darkness enveloped the unfamiliar town, its name unpronounceable to me. I never imagined James drinking so heavily at lunch, despite my pleas for restraint. His college friends, celebrating their annual reunion that I reluctantly joined, egged him on. When I suggested returning to our hotel, Mark snapped, "She's always controlling you, man," ordering another round. James followed me outside, his words slurred but his anger sharp. Years of buried resentment erupted, making the fight vicious. "Your purse has your passport, right?" he hissed before sliding behind the wheel. "Then you'll figure it out. You're so smart, always telling me what to do." Night fell completely, and reality sank in. The charming Italian town suddenly felt menacing. I counted my cash. €80, $37, far too little for a journey home or a hotel stay. James's wallet held my credit cards. He'd offered to carry them when my small purse was full. I found the cheapest pension, a shabby room above a bakery with a tiny bed and a corner sink. The elderly woman who led me there, though she spoke no English, patted my arm warmly. He blocked me, I gasped, glancing at my phone. 27 calls from James went to voicemail. Texts to Mark, Daniel, and all of James's carmates went unanswered. They'd all blocked me. I shuddered, realizing this was a calculated humiliation. Sleep came in fits, interrupted by hopeful phone checks and rising panic. By dawn, I clung to the belief that this nightmare would end. James would apologize, blame me for overreacting to his joke, and I'd be furious but relieved to return to our polished life in Boston, where he was a respected architect and I was his supportive wife, who'd abandoned her design career to manage our home and social calendar. But he didn't come. On the second day, I rationed my money, buying only a sandwich for lunch while scouring the town's edges, checking every hotel and restaurant for our tour group. By nightfall, I learned they'd left for Florence without me. On the third day, a kind cafe owner noticed me lingering outside and offered free espresso and broken English directions to the police station. The officer seemed unsurprised, as if abandoned tourists were routine, but his limited English and my non-existent Italian left me with a filed report and a sympathetic nod. That afternoon, I faced the hardest decision of my life. In front of a crowded pawn shop display, I removed my wedding ring. The 2-carat diamond James had upgraded on our 5th anniversary to replace our simple band. The merchant offered far less than its value, but enough for my next step. "America, call family," the pawn trader said, counting euros. I nodded mechanically, but a different plan was forming. Family meant explaining, hearing my mother's "I told you so" about James's temper, and facing friends who'd seen the cracks in our marriage I'd tried to conceal. The bus station was quiet, its electronic board listing destinations from travel magazines. An overnight bus to Rome connected to ferries, buses, and places James and his friends wouldn't think to look. My finger hovered over my father's name in my contacts. One call, and he'd send money for a flight home, back to a life of shrinking to fit James's ego and demands. James had joked about hiding my portfolios when I considered returning to interior design, saying, "Why complicate things? We don't need the money, and I need you focused on our life." I laughed then, but in that dingy station, I saw it as another bar in the cage he'd built around me. "Where you go?" the ticket agent asked, an older woman with kind eyes who'd watched me stare at the departure board for 20 minutes. "Greece," I said, the choice crystallizing. "The furthest coastal village you can get me to." 14 hours later, I stumbled off the final bus, stiff from cramped seats and exhaustion. The village, its name another mystery, had whitewashed homes and the scent of salt air and olive groves. My phone battery died mid-journey. Hunger gnawed at me, and the weight of what I'd done, or what had been done to me, pressed on my shoulders. Exhaustion blurred my vision as I trudged toward the town center. 3 days of emotional whiplash left me raw, oscillating between fury at James, anxiety about my uncertain future, and a strange, unexpected flicker of liberation. With my remaining euros, I could afford 2 nights in the cheapest room. Beyond that, I had no plan, no friends, and no local words beyond please and thank you. But as I watched the sunset paint the Aegean waves golden pink, I felt calm for the first time in years. James wanted to teach me dependence. Instead, he'd unwittingly set me free. Leaving the village, the Greek sun scorched my feet in tourist sandals. Dehydration, hunger, and mental fatigue made my world spin after my water bottle ran dry hours earlier. Silver-green olive trees lined the dusty road, their leaves glinting like coins in the breeze. I glimpsed orchards before my knees buckled. I barely felt the ground meet my face. A strange peace washed over me as darkness crept into my vision. Perhaps it was fitting, abandoned by my husband in one country, collapsing alone in another. I closed my eyes, exhausted since James left. Fosu, Kuritsimu, my light, my girl. A voice broke through my haze, followed by weathered hands rolling me over. An elderly face with deep lines and warm, worried eyes came into focus. She spoke rapid Greek, stroking my cheeks and offering a canteen. Water revived me enough to sit up, though my head still spun. She called herself Eleni, repeating it while pointing to herself, then gestured, "Sarah," at me. I tried to respond. Eleni helped me stand, her small frame surprisingly strong, and pointed to a stone house lined with olive trees, indicating we'd walk. I nodded, powerless. Her farmhouse kitchen smelled of herbs on wooden beams and something savory on an old stove. Eleni sat me at a worn wooden table before calling out. A man's voice answered, and an older man with a sunburned face and silver moustache appeared in the doorway, wiping his hands. Eleni introduced him as Nikos, her husband. He nodded tentatively, his eyes curious but kind. Eleni handed me cold water and a bowl of simple soup. As the aroma hit, my stomach growled, making Eleni smile. The evening was a blur of miscommunication. I used sparse words, gestures and tears to explain my situation. Eleni nodded as if she understood, though I knew she couldn't fully. Nikos was quiet but attentive, asking Eleni questions through gestures. They offered me their spare room, a simple space with whitewashed walls and a small bed draped in a handmade quilt. I fell asleep, too drained to resist. Morning brought crowing roosters and the scent of fresh bread. At the foot of my bed lay a simple cotton dress and cardigan, decades old but freshly laundered. They were loose, but a welcome change from my travel-worn clothes. Eleni smiled and served strong coffee and warm bread with olive oil and honey in the kitchen. As clarity returned, I felt ashamed, fed and clothed by strangers without question. I needed to explain, repay, and move on. Using broken English and my phone's translation app, charged with Nikos's adapter, I expressed gratitude and my intent to return to the village. Eleni's face fell. She shook her head firmly, pointing to the rain on the windows and my blistered feet. "Stay," she said, one of her few English words. "Rest." Over the next 3 days I tried to leave, but Eleni gently resisted, her sad expression guilting me at the door. She held my hand and opened a small wooden box on the mantel, revealing photos. Her trembling fingers pointed to a young woman with Eleni's eyes and Nikos's smile. "Marina," she whispered, gesturing far away. "Australia." She cradled her hand at waist height, indicating a child, tears falling. "Grandbaby," she said, pointing to a recent baby photo. "No C." I understood. Eleni saw me as a surrogate for her daughter. My heart ached for her loss, not manipulation. I nodded, placing my purse back on the door hook. I settled into their rural life. New routines emerged. Eleni taught me to collect eggs without startling the chickens, and hang laundry to catch the mountain breeze. Nikos patiently showed me how to spot weeds in the vegetable garden, after I mistakenly uprooted an herb. The work was physical, unlike my manicured Boston existence, yet fulfilling in ways I'd forgotten. My body protested at first, accustomed to boutique gyms and curated workouts. Calluses formed, and muscles I didn't know I had ached nightly. But each day, my pain eased, and my strength grew. Most importantly, farm chores and language lessons replaced my endless mental loop of abandonment. Sitting on their modest porch as Eleni sewed and Nikos smoked his pipe, I found peace. My betrayal still stung, but among ancient olive trees and simple living, it felt like an unexpected chapter. 2 weeks after my arrival, Eleni studied my face while we shelled peas. Slowly, in her improving English, she asked, "Home? You want to go home?" She mimed a plane and pointed toward America. I was startled. Home, our sleek Boston brownstone with designer furniture, flashed to mind, along with James's controlling habits, his helpful management of our finances that left me dependent, his subtle discouragement of my friendships, his dismissal of my career aspirations. I wept, speaking in a language Eleni couldn't grasp, but felt through emotion. I told her of James's betrayal, years of surrendering pieces of myself for peace, and being discarded like luggage in a foreign land. Eleni's weathered hand covered mine. She pointed to her heart, the farm, then me. When I finished, it was clear I could stay if I chose. "Work," I said softly, mimicking Nikos's olive tree tending. "I stay. I work." Eleni's smile broke like the Aegean dawn. She nodded, squeezing my hand, and returned to the peas, as if we'd settled tomorrow's menu, not my life's course. My olive-growing education began. The next morning, Eleni woke me before dawn with Marina's work clothes and sturdy boots. I followed her and Nikos to the grove, where the first light barely touched the ancient trees. "Eleonas," Eleni said, pointing to the fruit-laden branches. She gently raked them with wooden tools, letting olives fall onto nets below. My first attempt showered branches, leaves, and a few olives, earning Nikos's patient correction. My city-soft hands blistered by mid-morning, the sun blazing, and my shoulders burning. "Boston lady hands," Eleni teased at lunch, inspecting my palms. She returned with a beeswax and herb salve, its cooling relief instant as she applied it. "Tomorrow better," she said. She was right. Each day, my technique, strength, and hands improved. Within weeks, I could work alongside them for hours without complaint, proud of the growing olive piles. Sorting was tougher than harvesting. Under a pergola, we graded olives by quality, perfect for premium oil, slightly blemished for second grade, damaged for soap. Eleni watched closely at first, gently correcting my errors. Her guidance lessened as I learned subtle distinctions. "You learn fast," Nikos said one evening, his broken English and my basic Greek improving. His rare praise warmed me. I learned beyond the groves in Eleni's kitchen, which initially daunted me with its lack of modern tools. My Boston cooking involved magazine recipes for James's colleagues. Eleni's cooking relied on instinct and experience, not measurements. "Watch," she'd say, kneading bread dough with practiced hands. I tried to mimic her but failed spectacularly. My first stone oven loaves were misshapen, underbaked, or charred. Eleni encouraged practice, tasting my worst attempts. "All learning is waste," she said. Her embrace of imperfection was revelatory. In my old life, mistakes were concealed, not steps to mastery. Their meals' simplicity showed how processed my American diet had been. Everything came from their land or nearby farms. Sun-warmed vegetables, fresh eggs, goat cheese from down the road. Flavors were vibrant, needing only olive oil, lemon, and Eleni's herbs. This diet and labor reshaped my body. Lean muscle replaced fat, loosening my luxury clothes. Olive oil, soap, and sweat brightened my skin, once maintained by expensive creams. A stranger tanner, stronger, more grounded, gazed back from the small bathroom mirror. As my Greek grew, Eleni and I connected beyond work. During evening breaks, she shared black and white photos of her village childhood. I learned she'd been a teacher before joining her family's olive trade after marriage. Mimicking typing, she asked, "You?" I showed her photos of my pre-marriage interior design projects, a career James dismissed as a hobby. Eleni studied them, pointing to favorites with admiring sounds. "Beautiful thinking," she said, tapping her temple. Her validation of my creative work brought tears, a simple affirmation James had withheld. One rainy afternoon, Eleni taught me to knit, patiently untangling my dropped stitches and uneven rows. My first project, a lumpy scarf, filled me with more pride than the cashmere James gifted me. Next came a clay mug Nikos helped me shape, and a woven basket from a neighbor's lesson. Each item carried hours of learning and connection, worth more than any luxury. My material attachments faded as my collection of handmade treasures grew. After 3 months, Eleni and Nikos approached me one morning. They presented a small batch of olive oil we'd pressed and bottled in a modest shed. "Market day," Eleni said, pointing to the calendar. "You come." At the village market, locals and tourists browsed farmers and artisan stalls. Eleni and Nikos set out golden green oil, olive soap, and preserved olives on a simple table, placing me at the front to engage customers. My shaky Greek and their limited English sparked confusion and laughter, but sales climbed. After closing, Eleni handed me an envelope of euros. "Just your part," she said. "Fair work, fair pay." The modest sum, enough for one dinner at James's favorite restaurants, symbolized independence I hadn't known in years. James had managed our finances to simplify things, leaving me with cards tied to his accounts. These euros were my first step toward rebuilding. That night, I slept with the envelope under my pillow, touching it to confirm its reality. The following week, Eleni and Nikos invited me to dine at the village square's taverna, my first outing since arriving. In Eleni's borrowed blouse, I felt uneasy entering the bustling place. Mihalis, the owner, hugged the couple warmly before eyeing me. "American," Eleni said proudly in Greek, a word one recognized. Mihalis grinned and led us to their usual table. Nikos cleared his throat, speaking carefully in English over grilled seafood and village wine. "Sarah, we want talk business with you." His seriousness startled me. Had I overstayed? Eleni patted my hand and continued. "We old now, 68, 70 years, she said, glancing at Nikos. "No children here, not coming back." Nikos nodded solemnly. "We think retire soon, 2, 3 years. But olive trees," he gestured, 200 years old, "need young hands." I gasped as understanding dawned. Eleni smiled, eyes crinkling. "You learn fast, work hard. We teach everything. Business yours." The offer stunned me. They barely knew me, a foreigner who'd stumbled into their lives months ago, yet they proposed a future I hadn't imagined. "But I don't know enough," I stammered. "The trees, the pressing, the business side." "You learn," Nikos insisted. "We teach. No rush." My true apprenticeship began that night, not as hired help, but as an heir to generations of knowledge. Each morning, Nikos taught me how soil differences affected oil taste, how to spot disease early, and when to harvest for optimal quality. Eleni shared their business records, handwritten ledgers, and basic spreadsheets their grandson had set up years ago. Her system, though effective, was outdated. I spent hours streamlining inventory and sales tracking. One night, I showed Eleni how to filter the spreadsheet to reveal which oils sold best at which markets. Her eyes widened as patterns emerged. "Smart," she nodded. "Boston lady brain, good for business." With their approval, I made small marketing changes. Using Eleni's cooking lessons on flavor profiles, I updated our hand-labeled bottles. At the market, I answered tourists' questions with a simple pamphlet on our traditional methods. My improving Greek helped me connect beyond Eleni and Nikos's circle. The pharmacist prescribing Eleni's medication began chatting casually at our stall. The baker's wife invited me to her monthly coffee with village women, a challenging but enriching immersion. When the taverna started serving our premium oil with cards displaying our new labels, Mihalis became an ally. "Good for you, good for me," he winked. 2 nearby eateries contacted us about supplying oil after hearing of our work. 6 months in, I attended my first village event, the butcher's granddaughter's christening. From the back of the simple church, I watched the communal ritual, throat tight. The elderly priest, recognizing me, greeted me afterward in halting English from his Athens seminary days. "You bring new life to Old Grove," he murmured, eyes shining. "Good for village. Young people leave for Athens, for America. Village needs new blood." His acceptance dissolved my final barrier. Name day celebrations, beach gatherings, and summer festival planning meetings followed, each weaving me tighter into the community. Zoe, the weaver at the market stall beside ours, became a friend. A young widow with sharp wit and practicality, she reminded me of a college friend. Our talks, in my growing Greek and her excellent English, spanned business, village gossip, and personal insights. "You never speak of America," she said quietly one day as we packed unsold goods. "Family there? Friends?" The question stung. I'd been so absorbed in my new life, I'd buried my old one. My parents passed years ago. A few friends, but I paused, realizing James had gradually isolated me, finding fault with my college friends or colleagues. Zoe nodded knowingly. The husband who left you in Italy. You never say his name. James, I said, the word odd after months of silence. His name is James. Her candor was refreshing after Eleni and Nikos's gentle avoidance. I don't know, I admitted. I haven't checked my phone. I gestured vaguely. I'd powered it on occasionally for photos, but abandoned my American email and social media, fearing what I might find. Zoe raised an eyebrow. Perhaps time to look. Not for him, for you. To close the door properly. That night, after helping Eleni with dinner, I charged my old phone and connected to the farmhouse's spotty Wi-Fi. With trembling fingers, I logged into my neglected email. Hundreds of unread messages awaited. Friends had sent notes, from casual check-ins to worried inquiries. Guilt hit as I realized I'd vanished from their lives as I had from James's. A message from my former design mentor caught my eye. Job opportunity, followed by urgent follow-ups. She'd recommended me for a remote consulting role with a sustainable materials firm. The latest email, 2 weeks old, said the position was still open if I was interested. Then I saw it, an email from James Davis. Subject, I know where you are. My fingers froze. Sent hours ago, it read, Sarah, it's taken months and a private investigator, but I've tracked you to that backwater in Greece. This has gone on long enough. I'm coming to bring you home and end this ridiculous tantrum. My flight lands in Athens on Thursday. Be ready. 3 days from now, panic and anger surged. How dare he? After months of silence, he thought he could reclaim me like lost baggage. I stumbled downstairs, phone in hand. Eleni looked up from the kitchen table's ledger, her smile fading at my expression. Bad news from America, she whispered. James, I said. He's coming here Thursday. Eleni's eyes narrowed. She slid an envelope from under the ledger toward me. Good timing, then. Was waiting for right moment. Inside were Greek and English legal documents bearing my name, and there's a partnership agreement. 1/3 business yours now, Eleni said. Not future. Now. Tears welled as I grasped its weight. Not charity, but a true stake. A foundation to build on. You choose what happens Thursday, Eleni said firmly, tapping the papers. You have home here, business here, friends here. She pointed to my phone. That man, he no longer decides. Her words grounded me. For the first time since that Italian town, I felt secure. James would meet a transformed woman. The next days were a flurry of preparation, not for James's arrival, but for my own resolve. Sophia, the village's sole lawyer, helped me draft divorce papers in Greek and English. I tentatively accepted the remote consulting offer from my mentor. I emailed friends I'd ghosted, explaining briefly without apology. On Thursday, under a clear Greek sky, Nikos and I were testing olive oil samples in the processing shed when a car engine hummed in the afternoon heat. Eleni stood at the door, concerned but resolute. He is here, she said, heart pounding. I wiped my hands on my work apron and stepped outside. James stood by a silver rental car, stylish sunglasses atop his neatly styled hair. His casual yet expensive travel outfit, tailored chinos, and a button-down costing more than a week's oil profits clashed with the rustic farmhouse. He didn't notice me at first, giving me seconds to steady myself. The ancient olive trees and weathered stone buildings of my new home made this man, once my entire world, seem diminished. James, I called, my voice calmer than I expected. His confusion as he turned was almost comical. His eyes scanned my work boots, sun-tanned arms, and scrunchy-tied hair, struggling to reconcile the image. My God, Sarah, what happened to you? His familiar critical tone, which once sent me scrambling to fix whatever he disapproved of, now washed over me harmlessly. Life happened, I said, stepping closer. What are you doing here, James? His charm slid into place as he removed his sunglasses and opened his arms. I've come to take you home, of course. This has gone on long enough, don't you think? Whatever point you were trying to make, this isn't about making a point, I said, stopping out of reach. This is about building a life. His smile faltered. I heard Eleni and Nikos quietly exit the house behind me. Though they couldn't understand us, they stood ready, visible support. James's expression hardened as he noticed them. Are these the people you've been staying with? Have they been holding you here? Because if so, they've been teaching me, I interrupted, about olive farming, community, kindness without strings. I gestured to the groves. I'm part owner now. I have a business here. He looked incredulous, then patronizing, as I'd anticipated. A business, Sarah? Be serious. You're a designer, not a farmer. This is some eat, pray, love phase after our fight. I admit I shouldn't have left you in Italy. It was a stupid, drunken mistake. I've apologized. Now it's time to come home. Apologized? I said. When? In what universe does tracking me down and demanding I return count as an apology? His charm vanished, jaw tightening. Fine. I'm sorry I left you in Italy. It was immature and wrong. Is that what you want to hear? Can we move past this now? Why did you even look for me, James? It's been months. Why now? He shifted, uneasy, glancing at the old couple watching us. Can we discuss this privately in the car? Perhaps they don't speak English, and I have nothing to hide from them. Why now? His shoulders sagged. Your parents have been calling. Friends asking questions at events. Clients wondering why you're not at the house when they visit. It looks, he hesitated, bad for our image. My image, I said. Our reputation, he snapped. Our life together. The one we built over 10 years of marriage. The one you built, I counted. The one where I became little more than an accessory to your success. Tell me, James, did you even notice how unhappy I was before Italy? Did you care? His face darkened. We had a good life, Sarah. A beautiful home, financial security, respect in the community. What more could you possibly want? Purpose, connection, agency over my own choices, I said, pointing to the modest farmhouse. I found those here, in a place you dismiss as backward, he protested, voice rising. This isn't you. The Sarah I know wouldn't choose manual labor and poverty over comfort and status. I smiled, seeing the truth in his words. You're right. The Sarah you knew wouldn't have. But that woman died in Italy when her husband abandoned her as a joke. The woman standing here made different choices. Eleni stepped forward, pressing our partnership agreement into my hand. She sensed the moment's weight, even without understanding our words. I unfolded the document and held it out to James. I have legal ties here now. A business partnership, responsibilities to people who value me for my work, not my appearance or social connections. His face flushed with anger. This is ridiculous. Whatever game you're playing, it's not a game, I said, pulling Sophia's envelope from my pocket. These are divorce papers, James, already filed, with provisions for asset division. He stared at the envelope as if it might burn him. You can't be serious. You'd throw away everything for this. He gestured dismissively at the small farm. I'm not throwing away anything. I'm choosing something better, something real. I stepped forward and placed the envelope in his rigid hand. You left me, James. You drove away laughing. You just never expected I'd find my way without you. His fingers closed around the papers, his expression shifting between shock, anger, and wounded pride. You'll regret this, he muttered, but even he seemed to know the threat was hollow. When the novelty wears off, and you're still hauling olives in the sun at 60, you'll remember what you gave up. Maybe, I said, but I'd rather risk regret from choices I made than live with the certainty of regret from choices made for me. Nikos stepped closer, placing a weathered hand on my shoulder. Though he didn't understand our words, he read the outcome in our stances. He spoke to James in Greek, firm but kind. What did he say? James asked, voice low. He said, the road back to Athens is dangerous after dark. You should leave now to reach the city before nightfall. James looked between us, realizing this was neither a negotiation nor a rescue. Without another word, he returned to his rental car, divorce papers in hand. Eleni took my hand as the car disappeared down the dirt road. The three of us turned back to the farmhouse. Tonight's tasks awaited: cataloging oil samples, preparing dinner, checking tomorrow's market inventory. My husband abandoned me in a foreign land, thinking I'd be helpless and return, humbled. Instead, I found fertile ground to grow stronger, deeper roots than he could have imagined. In trying to break me, James unwittingly set me free.